First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for being here. Uh, over the years, I've grown in this job and matured and really tried to and gotten a more in-depth understanding of veterans. Yes, I'm a veteran, but sometimes within the group you learn different different ways to look at things. And I know that some of the veterans might not be here, and sometimes you think to yourself, how could a veteran not be here? And I learned over the years that every veteran grieves in his own way. Okay? And the fact that you're here recognizing their service is, on this very cold day, I am grateful and they are grateful, and I'm letting you know that on their behalf. Welcome, everyone, to the City of Chelsea Veterans Day ceremony on Monday, November 11th. This is not Memorial Day. This is to commemorate the veterans uh, who are in our community every day, those who survived, those who continue to serve on our police, our fire, our city council, city hall, school teachers, community centers, veterans groups, and in recognition of their service, their continued service, and their contribution to our community, we hold this event. And with that being said, I would like to call forth to do the Pledge of Allegiance. So, of course, facing the flag, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And do we have someone to do? Okay, great. Great. We do have someone to do the national anthem because that would have been painful if I had to do it. Please, come on up. And this is Vanessa Platero with Chelsea High School. Okay.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright star through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
And now we will have a representative of Boy Scout Troops of America, Troop 109, say the governor's proclamation.
Whereas since the Commonwealth's colonial days, thousands of men and women have served our country in defense of freedom and liberty. And whereas on November 11, 1918, the armistice was signed in the forests of Compiègne by the Allied nations and Germany, ending World War I, the war to end all wars, after 4 years of conflict. And whereas since that day, every November, people from around the nation have gathered to honor our veterans. And whereas there are approximately 388,000 veterans living in Massachusetts. And whereas today we are reminded of the great sacrifices and contributions our veterans have made to our country. Whereas we honor and salute those who served our country throughout the generations with honor, patriotism, and courage. And whereas it is appropriate that all Massachusetts citizens remember the bravery of those who served their country so that their dedication and sacrifices serve as a reminder of the cost of our freedom. Whereas in November 2019, the world will commemorate the 101st anniversary of the armistice that ended the fighting in World War I at 11 a.m. November 11, 1918, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. Now, therefore, I, Charles D. Baker, Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, do hereby proclaim November 11, 2019 to be Veterans Day.
And I know it says here moment of silence, and that was a transposition error. Obviously, this is not Memorial Day, it's Veterans Day. So, with my little knowledge that I do have, I don't have a minister here unless a minister wants to. Yes? All right. So, would you like to come up? Thank you. And we're going to have a small prayer for all our servicemen and.
Let us pray in our own way. Father God, we thank you for this day that we recognize the veterans of this Commonwealth and this world. We thank you, Lord, for the service that they provided, the service that they are providing today, Lord. And we also lift those families up of those that made the ultimate sacrifice. We thank you today, Lord, that we are gathered here, Lord, just to be in the midst of this place, Lord, to recognize and see some of those that have made this place a safer and stronger world for us, Lord. So we thank you today, Lord. We thank you for the city. We thank you for each and every one's here today, Lord. And we ask this blessing in your name, we pray. Amen.
Thank you. And now I would like to ask our city manager, Tom Ambrosino, to come up, please.
Well, thank you, Francisco. And on behalf of the city, I just want to welcome all of you to our Veterans Day celebration this morning to honor the veterans all across America, but in particular, veterans in the city of Chelsea. I'm joined today by other folks from our local government, City Council at Large, Leo Robinson, District 8 Councilor Calvin Brown, School Committee Woman Rosemary Carlisle. Thank them for joining us as well. Carlisle in a moment is going to talk a little bit about the history of this place, but I did read at one point that at a ceremony shortly after the city acquired this plot behind me to honor and bury the dead from the Civil War, there was a ceremony here, and the mayor of the city at that time made a speech that lasted close to 2 hours. I will be considerably shorter than that. I really am just proud to join you today in really celebrating the start of our reconstruction of this garden cemetery. You can see the work going on here, but this is just the beginning of a multi-year, multi-million-dollar complete renovation of this area to restore it to its former glory and to have it become a real crown jewel of the city again. And I'm really looking forward to the completion of this project. It will take quite a while, but it's something the city is committed to, and we're very excited about what this place will look like. And then shortly thereafter, we're going to celebrate the completion of renovation of the Civil War memorial that exists right outside City Hall. And both these public places of honor are a stark reminder, one, of the incredible sacrifice our veterans have given to the nation and to the city, including for some the ultimate sacrifice and the cost of their life. But two, it also is a reminder, it's evidence of the incredibly strong public commitment that the city of Chelsea has always had to honoring its veterans. And I can tell you that that strong public commitment continues to this day. It is shown in the evidence of the enormous amount of financial resources the city council has committed to the restoration of these public places. It shows every budget year in their strong support of Francisco and his office. And all I can tell you is that as long as I'm here helping to steward the city, that strong commitment to veterans will continue. And I know that I'll have the support of the city council in doing that. So with that said, I just want to thank you all for joining us. I am grateful, and the city is grateful to the service of all of its veterans, and I wish you all a well-deserved holiday and day of rest. Thanks.
Thank you, Tom. Our department has definitely felt the support, not only from the top of City Hall, but the City Council, the school committee, and all of the leadership teams in Chelsea. I'm very proud to recognize the support, especially proud that we do have two veterans, Councilor Leo Robinson and Councilor Giovanni Recupero, representing on the City Council, making sure that veterans are not forgotten. And now I'd like to call forth Carl Allen, who's with the City of Chelsea's Planning and Development Department, and a very big part of what you see around you.
Welcome. So first, I'd like to thank all of the veterans who have shown up and all of the ones who couldn't make it today. We appreciate and are very grateful for your service. I too would like to thank the Chelsea City Council for funding the work that we're doing here. The Community Preservation Committee, who gave us $50,000 to contribute to the work here, and also the Secretary of the Commonwealth's Veteran Heritage Program, who gave us a $15,000 grant to help with the renovation of the Soldiers' Lot behind me. The Garden Cemetery, it's, a beautiful 3-acre parcel in the middle of our densest neighborhood. Our plan over the next 6 years is to complete the renovation of this so that we can open it to the public from dawn to dusk every day and make it into a community resource rather than something you can only look at through fences. So in 2017, we completed a master plan for this renovation. What you see going on around you is phase 1 of that plan, which will replace the fencing along Shawmut Street, put a new archway over the entrance gate, reset some of the monuments at the base of the wall that we had to replace, and also did the renovations on the Soldiers' Lot. Over time, all of the paths will be relaid. You can see what it will look like. All of them will be out of stabilized stone dust, and wherever possible, they will be handicapped accessible. We can't change the terrain in the cemetery, but wherever we can, we're going to make all of the paths accessible. So this cemetery was established by residents of Chelsea in October of 1841. The first burial occurred that December. In 1868, the city purchased 18 lots to create the Soldiers' Lot. These were purchased after the Civil War ended to inter and to memorialize veterans of the conflict. Some of them are actually buried here. We're replacing memorial plaques. There are, I believe, 22 of them that were originally in bronze that had been stolen over the past couple decades. We're replacing them with granite plaques that replicate the bronze plaques that were missing. Those, we only have one which came back. They'll be placed within the next 2 weeks. They're coming. They were a little slower than we had hoped. So the other thing I want to point your attention to is, it's a little hard to see, but the flag that we're flying on the flagpole is a 35-star flag. That was the flag in use at the end of the Civil War, and we thought that would be a fitting memorial to the soldiers who had lost their lives there. So just to paraphrase Lincoln, it's now 12 years ago that our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. I wanted to just briefly reflect on the nature of union, for which many of these soldiers gave their lives. So the country's unofficial motto until 1956 was E Pluribus Unum, from many one. From the original 13 very different colonies, one nation was formed. Unions are not perfect. They must continually adapt and be improved. We become better as we address the darker parts of our heritage, slavery, genocide, and xenophobia, and we are getting better. And I particularly want to point out how fitting a motto E Pluribus Unum is for the city of Chelsea. Here, we are a community of immigrants that came together from many communities, and when all these communities come together as one, we are better. The whole is much greater than the parts. Thank you all.
Okay. And then I would like to, well, first of all, thank Carl. Great presentation. The amount of work and coordination. There's literally thousands of micro elements to this project that all have to be coordinated. So there's a lot of staff, financing issues, regulations, and policies that have to be followed. And I'm grateful that the city's committed to this, and I look forward to seeing this project completed. When I first started many years ago, I said to myself, I don't know. I just don't know. I couldn't wrap my head around it. And to see it getting done it's a great thing for me. And I'm sure for each and every one of you who are out here. With that, one of the other beautiful elements of our community, one of the many beautiful elements of our community is our Chelsea public school, of which I attended and tried to do as good as well as I could during those challenging years. We will be having a presentation with Alana Asher is one of the Chelsea or the Chelsea National Honor Society instructor, and we're going to have a presentation from one of our very own National Honor Society students, and it's kind of impressive, won a program. If you guys are familiar with the cemeteries in France, and she won the ability to go out there and travel. Although there were some challenges there at the end, very proud of Chelsea Heritage. Please.
Hello. So my name is Brianna Maldonado, and I had the opportunity to research a soldier whose story has been lost with my teacher, Brittany Fitzgibbon. And so this is a eulogy written about Robert Bachar. Unlike so many soldiers here today, Robert Bachar has no relatives buried. When it comes to the United States Army, he has no legacy of military service to follow. He had no proud family tradition to point to, which he could help us analyze his motives for enlisting. Robert Bachar was like the majority of our community in Chelsea, Massachusetts. He existed in a gray area as a first-generation immigrant between parents who never fully assimilated to America and future nieces and nephews who could never fully Americanize. Looking back, his relationship with America remained largely undefined in his lifetime. Robert Bachar was born February 2, 1915 in West Roxbury, a neighborhood in Boston, the youngest of three brothers. Theodore, William, and Robert were all born before the end of World War I, and to Stefan and Pauline Bachar, immigrants from Czechoslovakia. He likely graduated from Boston Technical Academy in 1928. It appears that all three brothers died childless, and as far as we can tell, there is no one living that can tell us Robert's story. And because his biography in dates and facts devoid of anecdotes and accounts, we can only guess at his motives for enlisting in the United States Army. His choice was probably not the impulsive decision of the youth. Robert was 25 when he enlisted, considerably older than his parents when he had his oldest brother. It does not appear to have been for economic or social opportunities that he was already employed and possibly already owned his own home at 278 Lamartine Street in Jamaica Plain. An easy answer would be American nationalism, but it feels anachronistic as Pearl Harbor, the casus belli of the United States, was 10 months away. An obvious and appropriate answer would be Czech nationalism, an undying motive to protect the fatherland. It does not appear to have been Czech nationalism either, as he likely would have enlisted earlier than 1941, like after Hitler invaded the Sudetenland, and despite the misleading 1930 census, Czechoslovakia was not his parents' home because it did not exist until 1918, after World War I. His parents may never have fully felt Czechoslovakian. It is unlikely, given the anti-immigrant sentiments and the racist resurgence of the interwar years, that they never truly felt American either. Ultimately, the most likely reason Robert joined was probably because he could not personally sit silent while the persecution and murder of European Jews were carried out openly. On January 30, 1941, Hitler's 8th anniversary as Chancellor, he repeated his threats to exterminate the Jews of the world. At the beginning of February, a collaborative fascist party had been established in France, and by the end of the month, thousands of Polish Jews had been forced to Warsaw Ghetto. Context matters. 1941 was the beginning of the final solution and height of Nazi power. 1941 represented a massive threat to possibly the most important man in Robert's life. Joseph Pollock was born to a Jewish family in Russia in February 1890, and he was the same age as Stefan Bachar, Robert's father. He emigrated to the United States and later tried to enlist in the U.S. Army, just 2 months after the United States entered World War I. Joseph Pollock went on to open the Joseph Pollock Corporation, a general garage in Dorchester, and Robert worked his entire adult life as a welder in Joseph's shop. His father worked as a machine operator, and his two brothers worked as draftsmen in motor repair in Joseph Pollock's shop. Robert is rarely mentioned without reference to Joseph Pollock. Joseph was their neighbor, their employer, their dear friend, and a man Robert must have deeply respected, and he was Jewish. Men like Joseph Pollock were legitimately at risk in Nazi world order. Men like Robert Bachar could not let people he loved be threatened. Robert made a choice implicit with sacrifice. Military service has long been a path to citizenship and national honor. This is a sacrifice, as the Bachars knew, in July 26, 1944. Their son died winning the Silver Star, the highest honor for valor serving in combat, made all the more remarkable because Robert was a member of the band, which had no need to be in combat position. He sacrificed his life and died fighting an enemy that was a threat to everyone in his life, both on the battlefield and at home. A year after Robert enlisted, his father, Stefan Bachar, registered on April 26, 1942, the so-called Old Man's Draft. His father was 58 years old, and yet he never before enlisted in the U.S. military, though he would have been 30 years old when World War I broke out. 2 years after Robert's death, his mother Pauline finally naturalized on August 6, 1946, though she had lived in the country for more than 40 years. This is probably her way of showing thanks and honoring her son for what he died for. Robert's father did not feel like an American until his son fought for the country. Robert's mother did not feel like an American until her son had died for this country. Today, I think of the parents who wanted their children to die for a country that they did not fully embrace. Robert's short life and valiant death make me think of our community in Chelsea, where the children of immigrants make a choice to join a long line of great Americans who fought to protect what was right from what was wrong. Let us remember the sacrifice of Robert Bachar and the greatest generation who were willing to die so that others might live with the individual dignity and collective compassion that all people deserve. Thank you.
That was a great job. You can clearly tell a significant amount of research there. Thank you. And with that, we're going to have a speaker, Dexter Bishop, who's with the Sons of the Union Veterans of the Civil War. And then once he's done, we're going to raise the Civil War flag to commemorate our veterans lot here at the cemetery. Mr. Bishop?
As you heard, my name is Dexter Bishop. I'm past commander for the Department of Massachusetts Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War. What we do is basically what we're doing today. We attend ceremonies like this, especially when they are for Civil War plots. And as you can see behind us, there's a fairly decent plot there. Needs a lot of work, I have to say that. But our job is to keep the memory of Civil War veterans alive, and also all veterans. In 1954, the Sons were constituted as the sole heirs, legal heirs, to the Grand Army of the Republic, which was the army that fought in the Civil War. And that constitution came from the U.S. Congress. Our job is to make sure that whatever is left of memorials and memorabilia that deals with the Civil War is preserved one way or another. It's our job to do that. And that's why one of the reasons we're standing here today is to make sure that everyone understands that this is a very important part of our national heritage. It formed this nation, that Civil War. It formed it into a nation that became one instead of the North and the South. It did a number of other issues that were problems of the day, but they all became one again. And that is what we try to bring up forth to everyone. One of the things that I would like to mention is that we also do various programs. We go into the schools, we'll bring in speakers. We have a training program every year over in Lynn for the teachers. For the teachers sometimes may not have all of the truth in what history has to say. And for that, over in Lynn anyway, they get their PDPs. So it's we do this every single year. We also run a history bee with the two high schools over in Lynn. The winning high school gets a $500 bounty for use in their history department. And as we all know, school departments are pretty tight right now for funding, so this comes in pretty handy. And the kids earn it. They go. It's an amazing thing. I have to admit that there are some questions that the kids can answer, I can't. And I'm glad I'm not on that, sitting on that chair. But anyway, I just want to say thank you very much for inviting us and giving us this opportunity to introduce ourselves and to participate. It's really an honor to be here. And I must tell you one thing. There's a woman that used to live in this town by the name of Myronchuk. Her last name was Nadine, yes. And this was her cemetery as far as she was concerned. I'm sure knowing her, I'm sure she was always on somebody's back to make sure something was done down here. But anyway, she's also a member of the Civil War Roundtable that meets over in Lynn. And when I told her that what was happening over here, she was really excited. So I thought I would let you know that you never know who you're talking to at any given time. And she has, in her mind, she has put together a thought that is, down at Bourne, there are 7 unknowns that she believes belong in this cemetery. And what happened is when their bodies were found about 10 or 12 years ago, when they were building a road, the buttons sort of indicated that it was probably Chelsea. It was the people were in a particular unit that it looks like was from Chelsea. But because they couldn't really nail it down, they're down in Bourne. And every year at Bourne Cemetery, the Sons of Union Veterans, we lead the parade in, and we also read Logan's Order number 11, which is the thing that established Memorial Day. And as you know, today is called Veterans Day. It used to be Armistice Day, and then it was Remembrance Day, and then in this country, because in the rest of the world it's still Armistice Day or Remembrance Day, we in 1954 changed it over to Veterans Day to encompass all veterans, so that every veteran is remembered today. Memorial Day is a remembrance for those who passed away in battle. All right, so that's the basic difference between the two. So I want to again thank you for the opportunity to come and share a few words with you, and I now turn the program back over to you.
And one thing, I'm very grateful for the Sons of the Union Veterans of the Civil War for coming out. And I didn't realize we had a local group that, I love the uniforms and everything. I didn't, and before my time, but it's good to see that those traditions are still carried on. And I believe the group has a camp at the Chelsea Soldiers Home. Camp 22 is at the Soldiers Home. So if you guys ever want to reach out and connect, participate, there's definitely a very close option there. I also take the opportunity to recognize Representative Dan Ryan, consummate advocate for veterans, and Roy Pucko, past commander of the PAV, and if there's any other group, DAV, American Legion, VFW, very grateful for any representation here in recognizing our veterans. I'd like to take this opportunity at this point to raise the flag, please. This is a very special 35-star flag that will be home here at the Garden Cemetery. It's very unique. As they do their part, I just want to share a little bit, and I don't want you guys to think I'm like this really smart brainiac kind of guy. It was actually Carl who shared this with me. So apparently at the beginning of the Civil War, the star had 34 stars, and I found out that Virginia was actually the capital of the Southern endeavor, Confederacy. Was it Richmond, Virginia? I was stationed at Fort Lee myself, but I didn't know this history. And 8 counties, because think about it, it's the capital of the Confederacy, and 8 counties were so opposed to what Virginia was doing, they formed the state of Western Virginia. And that's where we get the 35th star. All rise. Nice if we had a little wind to spread it out a little bit, so you can see the difference. But the stars are in circle formation, so maybe at some point. But very grateful to Carl. He actually also was the person who acquired this very unique flag for us. So. Before one of the things I just wanted to reiterate is that I'm looking forward to this project completing for many reasons. I invite each and every one of you to go to the Chelsea City website. There's a master plan that kind of shows all of the very detailed work. One of the unique parts of participating here and working with the Boy Scouts and the Explorer Post, doing cleanups and trying to keep the place as best as we could up to date. When you get to the back of this cemetery and you look forward, it almost seems like you're not in Chelsea. It seems very open, very spacious, tree-lined, and I look forward to when they finally finish this. And they're going to have a path that's going to go all the way around and handicap accessible at most of the points. And it's going to reintegrate this beautiful location, this beautiful open space to the community. And with that being said, I'd like to invite once again our city manager for thank you.
Thank you, Francisco. Thank you all for coming again on the city's behalf. Our gratitude to all of our veterans. I want to thank 3 fabulous speakers. The ceremony is not over yet. We're going to now take a relatively short walk for those who can join us to the City Hall area, where we will get a glimpse of the completed restoration of the Civil War monument that exists across from City Hall. We did work on that this summer, again funded by the Community Preservation Committee and the City Council. That was a significant restoration, so we're looking forward to seeing that in all of its new glory. So I encourage you to join us for this short walk, and we'll reconvene in about 15 minutes or so. Right. Thank you. Folks, can I have your attention, please? We're going to very short commentary and then a ribbon cutting. Could I have all the elected officials join us, please, up here for the ribbon cutting? Enio, Giovanni. So there were 2 elected officials that I neglected to mention. We're joined by City Councilors Enio Lopez and City Councilor Giovanni Recupero. And I believe State Rep Dan Ryan, come on up, please. So, Fidel Maltez, the Public Works Commissioner, is just going to say a few words about the restoration here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I work across the street, and every morning I do, and every morning I would come out and see this monument, right? I mean, after doing a lot of research on the monument and the square, it's amazing just the robust history we have here in Chelsea. So over the last 2 years, we started this effort. We redid all the sidewalks around the monument. We took down a tree that was next to the monument, and it was almost overshadowing the monument. Removed all the shrubbery and just did clean grass, right? And the idea is to make the centerpiece this actual monument. Last year, we got significant funding from City Council and CPA funds that actually funded the restoration of the monument itself. So what we did is on top of the soldier, he was missing the bayonet, so it had to be recast. There were a few faces of Lincoln that have been removed over the years, and quite a bit of letters that were missing as well. This monument was installed in Chelsea in 1868, right? So over 140 years. And it was originally installed in Union Square in Chelsea, and it was moved here in 1911. So just a lot of history, right? So thank you for the funding and thank you for the project. Francisco.
I just want to share with everyone here, when you first start as a veteran service officer, some years ago, you really don't know what you can do and what you can't. The previous veteran service officer, Ted Sobolewski, one of the last things he did was open up a box and show me a U. It was a bronze U, it was all green, and he said, well, I'm giving this to you so that you don't forget that we've been trying for years, but, the receivership wasn't that far ago, and he had no idea with his sad face of when this statue would ever be restored. And I myself, I at that time had no answer. So finally, after all these years, to have this beautiful symbol of heritage, reformation of our great nation. Very happy, very proud. Thank you. I can't say thank you enough to the City Council, legislature that provided those funds to be available, leadership, DPW. Thank you so very much. And before we continue, Councilor Calvin Brown wanted to invite for me to ask the veterans to please come up. Any veterans that we have here? Roy?
So could we have the veterans,
The
all
veterans?
folks who are veterans,
Darryl,
come up
where's
and join
Darryl?
us for the ribbon cutting?
Right? Please.
All right, so why don't let's move towards the ribbon. Watch your step.
You guys be celebrating.
Can we surround let's surround the veterans agent.
Okay. Next up. Everybody inhale. All right. Guys ready?
1, 2, 3. Yay! Thank you